Hi everyone, welcome to my channel usmancode. In the last video, we have used Refit and configured get endpoint and have seen that how we can pull the list of posts from an endpoint, basically a RESTful API. Today we will be covering other different RESTful methods like post, put and delete, and we will try to implement that using Refit in our console application. Before that, let's rerun the application to see where we were previously, and we will start implementing the next three methods on top of that. So I am running this application. It should give me the post titles. Okay, I'm getting update titles and test titles. Okay, I'm getting the required list of posts. That is good. Okay, next thing, the model will remain same because same two fields will be used. In this contract, the ICE post service interface, we will be adding the next method, which will be our post. We will use post and the endpoint will be the same slash posts, and in the task we will be expecting, now that is interesting thing, we should get I API response, and that should be right. What is I API response? This is basically an interface which gives us the hold of actual request status. Let's say in the case of that list, we are getting the list of post models. What if there is a different status code returning from the API, right? So we might get missed that information in that. So ideally, we should be getting I API response here as well, instead of directly pulling the list of models. Right now, if we see what is the response coming for that one, that should be a bit different, and the post should be now coming inside our content property, not directly in the post, right? So let's debug that once and see how it works. So now we are on this breakpoint. Let's step over it, and if we hover over the post, although it's not a right name, it should be response. So we will do that later on. But if we see the actual properties inside this one, now we can see that we are getting the status code here, which is OK 200. We are getting error property null, the content which actually contain the list of those objects coming from the API. So we should be using that interface instead of directly using that object from best practice perspective, and we will be following that approach because it gives us the control over other different aspects and other different properties of that request response object, right? So we made that change in that endpoint, and we will be using same IAPI response for the other methods as well. So we have declared the post, and by following the same approach, we will be declaring other two different methods as well. One was for put, and for the put one, again, post, we will be using same endpoint for the post one, and because we are updating a record, we will require an ID for that particular record as well, and that will be required in the route. And for that one, again, task API response, and we can name it put, but ideally we can name anything we want, like update record, something like that, but let's keep it simple. We can name it put, and here we will need the ID, and that ID variable will be mapped to this variable automatically. So the name should be the same, and the other thing would be the model that will be coming from the body of the request, which is post model, and we should be passing the model, and here as well that should be passed to the body, right? So that was the third point. The fourth is our delete one. So delete, and again for delete one, the endpoint will be the same, which is posts. And again, we need to pass an ID just to make sure that we are targeting the required record in the API. Again, task, API response, delete, and the ID of the record. So now we have all four main methods declared inside that interface. With the magic of Refit, we should be able to directly consume those here in our main class, in our main method. All right, so let's start by creating view. That would be, but before that, we should rename it to get response, and here var create response, and we should be able to calling await refit config dot post, and we should be able to pass a model here, and with that model we can pass, let's say, id. Because id is dynamic, we can ignore that one. We can say title is equal to next post, something like that. And for this one we can say if create response dot status code, or we have another property is success status code. We can directly write on the console post created, and next thing is to update a post. For that one, update response is equal to await refit config dot put, and we can use our postman to get the id. Let's say for the, let's say, third record, we want to update that test title, and for that one we can say free, and we need to pass a new post model here, and we can say the title is now third post, right? And again, the same thing we can use here as well for the case of put, but for that one we can use update response post updated should be the line on the console, and the last one is delete response, and again await refit config dot delete, and let's delete the record with the id of 4. So let's pass id 4 here, and new post model and title. Do we actually need the record? No, we don't need. Let's double check in our contract. No, we only need the id, so that should be it. For the delete one, yes, we want to console write post deleted. All right, so now all four different endpoints are consumed, and let's give it a try. Control F5 to see the results. Update test titles, test title, post created, post updated, post deleted, right? And if we now double check, third should say third post, which means post has been updated. The fourth one is gone. Fourth is not there anymore, and we have next post, new post created for our create request, right? And if we go to the over db file, we can see the same reflection here in our db file as well. If we make another call, it will persist, and if we rerun our code once, control F5, and if we see now third record has been there, same should be reflected in our postman get request. Great. So this is how we can implement the RESTful API. We can consume the RESTful API using Refit with a few lines of code, nothing specific or complex implementation or configuration is required. We just need one line of configuration, and after a contract is decided, which is this one, pretty much simple and clean, we can directly consume those methods as a functions, which will internally making the HTTP client request to that endpoint. Great. Before concluding the video, you might have seen this file, which is tv.json. This is JSON server package, which is providing this functionality. And I have tried to cover that, how we can implement that mock data service, we can say, or RESTful API with few steps without a single line of code. And in the same video, I have promised to create another video with advanced configuration, which I already have implemented here, that need the configuration file and the server in the node side. So I will be covering that part separately in that other series. Just for the information, that is our own implemented RESTful API on the top of JSON server package, so that you guys can see the implementation. If you are interested, you can watch that video as well. So that was all for this video. In case of any questions or queries, to ask me in the comments. See you in the next one.